Okay, that's Travis. Yep, there we go. One more. Give me one more.
Woo!
I'm George Balekji. He's Travis Thomas. This is Foxboro Rush. Wherever you get your podcasts, please, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. Like, subscribe, rate, review for this one. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button on the Nesson YouTube page. Same thing, you can find us on Twitch, Nesson YouTube, and go on social media, Instagram, X, TikTok, whatever it may be on Nesson. Hit follow. He's Travis Thomas Experience. I'm just at George Balekji. Google the last name, know how to spell it. But follow us there as well. We got plenty to talk about in today's Foxboro Rush. We're going to start off with the Matt Judon trade. Patriots getting a third rounder back for a 32-year-old pass rusher. Yeah. I love it, but they could have done this better. Also, ESPN's own Marcel Louis-Jacques, beat reporter that covers the Dolphins, joins us to talk everything Tua. And then we go through our Mount Rushmore of all-time linebackers in NFL history. Trav, I want to start with, man, I'm a host. I'm talking a lot. I'm not being a gracious host. How you doing today, my friend?
You are the most gracious host, man. It's all good. I'm doing great. I don't know if you're caught up or not, my friend, but the new episode of Hard Knocks with these Bears, it just keeps getting better and better. George, I think I'm about to triple down on my bet. I have the Bears in the playoffs. I am now sipping the Kool-Aid. Believe in the hype. I think this Bears team may go on a deep playoff run, George. Dare I say, in the wide open NFC. I mean, they may go on a run. They could be Super Bowl good, George. I believe in the Chicago Bears.
Go Pack, go. That's what I'll say to that. I'll check out the latest episode. I'll take a break from rewatching Game of Thrones for like the 70th time in my life.
There you go.
I'll check out the latest episode of Game of Thrones after the Pats preseason game. But hey, this is going down. This episode is dropping on Friday morning. So we're going to talk with Judon trade, going to the Falcons. New England getting a third-round pick in return. I thought that was a great return because this was a guy, it's either you pay him and he's not on the roster next year, he'll leave in free agency, or you'll pay him a few years, and then you're just not going to get that same production from him. He's playing in his age 32 season. And I just want to go through the Matt Judon timeline quick. Last offseason, did the hold-in, didn't practice, conditioned on the side, basically did a hold-in to get his pay advanced up to 2023. We knew this was going to be a point of contention between him and the front office. He had an injury of week 4 of 2023, so we never saw him the rest of the season. Held in again, pretty much, showing up to practice, but holding a public press conference saying, I want to get paid. I see everyone getting paid. I'm jealous. I know my worth. I want to retire here. He had a very public, animated conversation with Gerard Mayo. Did not make a first-time head coach look good. Yep. Then a day away from the team, returned, had another public press conference saying, again, I want to get paid, and we're far from sides, went on social media, all that. Mm-hmm. And then the news dropped, a third-round pick for Matt Judon. Trav, we threw around draft picks. We were saying fourth-rounder, but it would have to be compensatory, or, there would have to be, if he hit certain criteria, it could go up to a third, or a fifth to a fourth, all that.
Right.
The Patriots getting a third-rounder back for Matt Judon, who at 32 years old, is just, that's not what you pay pass rushers. You can go through the top guys. They're not his age. And most importantly to me, Travis, a guy that would no doubt not be around by the time the Patriots are good again and a solid playoff team. Right. This was a fantastic trade just to get this return. I'll get more into it on why I think it could have been handled better. But what's your reaction to this news of Matt Judon getting traded?
Hey, man, let's get into it. I mean, listen, first of all, kudos to Eliot Wolf. I completely agree with you. And you and I walked down this path many a times of what the compensation could look like. And I didn't think they could get a third. I thought fourth was best you could get for them. In fact, George, the rumors are that the Falcons and the Bears, as I brought up the Bears off the top, the Falcons and the Bears were in play here for Matthew Judon, and the Falcons or the Patriots decided to go with the Falcons because they, much like myself, believe in the Bears' hype, and they thought it'd be a higher third-round pick. I actually think the Bears, even though I gave them props to start the show, George, I think the Bears dropped the ball here. You got to give up a second. If this is an arms race, go get them. Pair Judon with Montez Sweat. If you remember, I thought the Bears was a really good landing spot for Judon. It was all for naught. I don't even know if we talked about the Falcons, but I'll tell you this. I want to say it's a win-win for both sides here. I want to say Eliot Wolf, great job with the Patriots getting a third-round pick back. And then I want to say a win for Judon. going to the Falcons, a team that in a absolutely crappy division. And you know I want to drop an S-bomb there, but it's a family program, so I'll call it crappy. But you know what that division is. The Falcons have every chance to win this thing and should win it, so he can win on the field. And then I would call it win-win if he were actually getting paid. But then the Falcons come out and say, hey, I mean, he's under contract, so we just got a pass rusher. We'll talk money when it's time to talk money. What? So, I mean, no one had a conversation. This is on Judon. This ain't the Patriots' fault. This is on you, Matthew Judon. Then he tweets that he's heartbroken to leave. Please, I told you from the beginning, you had to trade this guy. I am shocked they got a third-round pick. I mean, Eliot Wolf should have his own day here in New England. It should be Eliot Wolf Day because this is a miracle. He got a third-rounder for this guy. This guy should have been gone a month ago, and I told you. I said this was going to happen. I called it when this started happening that they got to trade this guy as of yesterday. They finally get it done. I can't believe it's a miracle they got a third-round pick. And then how about the Falcons fleecing Matthew Judon? We're going to trade for you, and we'll talk money when it's appropriate at the end of this contract. I mean, this guy, you got to be kidding me. If you're going to raise hell with one franchise about not getting paid, what do you think's going to happen? Of course they're going to move you, but what you have to make clear to everyone involved is, look, I don't give a damn where. You could trade me to Siberia. If there's not a bag on the end of it, I ain't going. So what was Judon doing? All this time here in town, you're being and complaining, and then finally, you go somewhere where you would think maybe you can get a contract because that's what it should be about, right? That's why you were being and complaining all this time. And then finally, a team picks up the phone, makes a great deal to your current employer, and then they tell you they're not going to pay you? Why'd you even raise hell to begin with? You should have just played it out and then worried about it at the end of the contract. Don't come to me with this broken heart nonsense. Judon blew this. Good for the Patriots. Getting back a third is a miracle, George.
Hey, he's ending up on a team that will be in the playoffs. He's ending up on a team that's in a better spot roster-wise than the New England Patriots. But I agree with you. I'm shocked when I heard that the Falcons, it wasn't a sign-and-trade deal. When I saw a third-rounder, I'm like, okay, they'll probably give him a 2-year deal. Just have him for the next 2 years around a very young defensive line. Yes. Look at the Atlanta Falcons right now. I know they went Michael Penix in the first round, but their next 3 picks, 2 defensive tackles, 1 edge rusher. They go out and get Matt Judon. They got A.J. Terrell on their roster. They got Jesse Bates last offseason. They just signed Justin Simmons as well. Raheem Morris, as a second time being a head coach, learning from his past transgressions, but also bringing over a great offensive coordinator with a system familiar for Kirk Cousins. And with all these weapons, offense is taken care of. They invested in the defense. This is a Falcons team that knows how weak the division is.
Right.
Coast through the regular season, get into the playoffs. Kirk performs well. It's a good landing spot for Judon, but I was absolutely surprised it was a third rounder with no sign and trade or an extension in agreement either way. But for the Patriots to get a third rounder back, and I listed it, he's 32 years old, was not going to be here by the time they were good and relevant and in the playoffs again. To get that third rounder back, because we see all the holes on this roster, Travis, the offensive line was absolutely dominated by the Eagles. They don't have talent on the outside. Their cornerbacks are still a little questionable outside of Christian Gonzalez. This team needs so much at so many spots. Keep getting assets. This is a reminder. It's a foundational year. And it tells me, too, I was Mr. Optimistic with the Patriots. Yep. I said this is a 6-7 win team. Now no Christian Barmore and no Matt Judon on your pass rush, your 2 best defensive players, 3 or 4 wins. Because defense does a lot for this team, but you have a lot of good players at the second and third level of this unit. But what can be done when quarterbacks have all the time in the world? Keon White, time to step up. O'Shane Jimenez, time to step up. Josh Uche, can you be more than a third down specialist?
Yeah.
DeMarcus Covington, you're going to have to be blitzing a lot. So Christian Gonzalez, can you cover your guys?
Yes.
This is going to be so fascinating to watch this defense evolve, but it sends a clear message to New England. They don't believe in this year. That's what it's telling me. They do not believe in this year at all or believe in this team. It's going to be interesting how the locker room reacts. He's a respected guy around the league, let alone in New England. And think about it, Juwan Bentley, Devon Godshaw, guys that carry weight. They both said, we know, you know how important he is. I hope he gets paid. Guys were saying publicly to pay Matt Judon because they saw all the money going everywhere. And the Patriots said, we'll take a third rounder. We'll take it for the future. I do want to say, though, the Patriots should have handled this better. You get this done before the draft because you knew it was going to be a part of contention and it was going to be heated.
Yes.
A current draft pick's always more valuable than a future one because teams get better year after year. In theory, they should. That's why you want a current draft pick. You know where they pick. And if they got a current one, we could have seen something. More third-round picks. Maybe you trade back into the second. Maybe you get that offensive tackle, that left tackle your roster desperately needs. I think Eliot Wolf did not handle this the best because it wasn't done pre-draft. But for them to get a third rounder in return, it's a great return for a team in a rebuild for a 32-year-old player.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit on a couple things you said. I do not believe, and you and I have argued about this, so this is not, nothing new. We're just arguing about the same thing present day. But I'm not so quick to just say this team has punted on this season and it's like, we're in a rebuild. We're going to stink another year and then figure it out. Like some of this stuff, and I told you this, bro, from the jump. I know what you mean about Judon being a respected guy in the locker room. But again, if this happens earlier in the offseason, maybe there's a chance it could splinter the locker room or something like that. But it's so late in the game, man. This is like the 9th inning with 2 outs. They don't have time. And that's why I said I think this trade is late. I told you a month ago, you got to get rid of the guy. Look, Judon's not here. We have to prepare and get ready for week 1. They got the preseason now, all these, practices with other teams and stuff like that. They don't have time to mourn or think about Matthew Judon and his impact. They got to go. I do not believe they're just punting. I think some of this stuff is, yes, we are in a rebuild. It's been a rebuild. But we still have to identify the young pups we have who can play. That's why you're seeing some of these young guys get the bag. You're going to have another season of that. You got $1 gazillion in cap space next season, and you and I both think they're going to have high draft picks. Go get them. Some of this is not just punting on the season we're going to stink. I think some of it is evaluating who can play, and let's make that our core. So I would say it's addition by subtraction in that way. Getting rid of Judon opens it up. And you mentioned some of the names, Uche Jennings, others, to let them ball out and others. And then you find out what you got, and then you can move forward.
They know what they have with Uche, though. That's a third down pass rushing specialist. They know what they got with Keon White, a guy that's very versatile. And they know what they have guys in the secondary. So that just says to me, and you know what they're probably saying in the locker room, is that we tried to work with him. We couldn't get close. We got to do what's best for the team. And you want to in reality of roster construction. He was demanding this much, so they trade him. At least they try to facilitate it, and all these guys got the bag. But with the Judon trade, you already know you don't know when Christian Barmore is going to return. He's dealing with blood clots. He was at practice, so that's a good sign to see, but you don't know when he's playing football again.
Right.
You got rid of your best pass rusher. I don't care what anyone says. This is the front office evaluating this season, evaluating next season, and they know. And it's evaluating the Drake May timeline. Everything is tied to the quarterback in the NFL. And they know Judon right now not being on the team, helps out their draft pick in the first round this upcoming season when they need an offensive tackle. But also it just shows if we can get assets and we can get more draft picks and more young talent on this roster by trading a guy that won't be here after this year, let alone when we're good again, to me that's them punting on the season. Gerard Mayo said it's a foundation year. Foundation, that's another way to say rebuild. That's a nice way to say it. And that's another way of him looking at Patriots fans and going, please be patient. We need to get this right. They should have handled this much earlier in the offseason. I don't care when it went done because I was thinking, around trade deadline, he'd be moved. But yeah, to get a third rounder back in return is good. I don't think it has anything to do with evaluating the younger dudes. They know what they got with them. They know what they have with them. It's just this is purely team building and looking in the long term. It helps them so much more than Judon would have if he got 15 sacks this season.
Yeah, I'll tell you this from an Atlanta standpoint. You now have Kirk Cousins and Matthew Judon, right? I mean, my God, in that sieve of a division, if you can't win that division now, you never will. I already told you this. They have not recovered from 28-3. I don't care what anyone says. And by the way, even if, George, for the sake of the conversation, the Falcons win the division and they pull a Kirk Cousins, what they always do, where they win the division and then he can't give you anything in the playoffs, I mean, this franchise is cursed forever. 28-3 has cursed this franchise forever, George. I'm convinced. If they can't win it with Cousins and Judon and get a playoff win or two, they are cursed forever. 28-3 forever.
Cousins is crucial in this. And look, but Judon is just another luxury piece for a defensive-minded head coach. I think it's a great addition. They have the secondary. They have the young guys up front. It's winning at the line of scrimmage, but Cousins, if he comes back, he has executed in the playoffs. He has. Yes. Look at his numbers. Doesn't turn the ball over, has good passer ratings. It's just, it takes more than a quarterback to win in the postseason. It's not always the most talented guy unless you're Patrick Mahomes. But Cousins elevates this offense to a level where he can actually get the ball to their weapons. And then a guy like Judon, opposite of the other guys they have up front, and playing with the guys like Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons behind him, elevates his whole defense. Atlanta will win their division. It's a matter of can they win a playoff game. It's just that. All right, Trav, and we can't talk about great football players and talk about Judon being traded from the Pats without bringing up the AFC East and the implications it has, where New England's just going to be even worse. But we're going to start some AFC East previews. We're going to bring on beat writers around the division. This time we have Marcel Louis-Jacques. And Trav, we got to bring up Tyreek Hill. Number 1 player in the NFL top 100. That's according to his peers. So we bring a guy that covers them every day. ESPN's own Marcel Louis-Jacques joining Foxboro Rush. Marcel, thanks for taking the time. Before we get even into the discourse of Tyreek Hill being number 1.
Man, thanks for having me on. Look, the funny thing is, I think he's low-key known about it for a while now, but, Tyreek is a performer at the end of the day, so he's going to be excited. But, hey, it's hard to argue, man. He has an argument at least. I think we're getting Mahomes fatigue just a little bit, but he does have an argument as far as skilled players go. Yeah, number 1, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think he's one of one in the NFL, just a history of how dynamic he is. But I agree with the Mahomes fatigue because Mahomes at 4 nonetheless is ridiculous. But hey, bro, we're bringing you in to talk Dolphins. Of course, you're the ESPN Dolphins beat reporter. Let's first start with the guy that's throwing him the football. Tua Tagovailoa with the 4-year, $212 million contract, $167 million guaranteed. Is there all-around buy-in on this guy, obviously from the ownership, but around the team that he is the quarterback that can lead them to a playoff win and more? Because we know that's the expectations down in Miami.
George, you got it. $212.1 million.
Woo, don't forget that point one.
That point 1 was important because it put him 0.1 over Jared Goff's exact contract. So we can't forget that 0.1. But no, they do believe in him. They absolutely believe that he is their guy. Obviously they dragged their feet a little bit there, and you would have liked, if you're a Dolphins fan and if you're Tua's people, you would have liked this deal to have gotten done, months ago. It's something that both sides have been interested in for 2 years now. They essentially tabled talks last offseason after his 2022 injury-riddled year. Then they told him, look, we need to see you last an entire season. We need to see you healthy. You have not been able to stay an entire season, stay healthy for a full 17-game stretch yet. So he did that. He led the NFL in passing. He led them to the playoffs. From his perspective, it's like, well, what more do I have to do? You could see the kind of frustration in his face as well during minicamp where there wasn't a deal done. And he's like, this is not progressing as fast as obviously I would like it to progress. But, the Dolphins did get it done. And kudos to them. They've had a lot of mouths to feed this offseason. They obviously let Robert Hunt and Christian Wilkins go, but it wasn't just Tua that needed to be signed. Jalen Waddle got a new deal. Raheem Mostert got a new deal. And then, of course, Tyreek Hill got additional money added onto his deal, no extra years. But there's a lot of people to take care of. There's a lot of stars in this locker room that need checks to be cut. But I think they believe Tua is the guy to lead them there. And obviously the biggest argument against Tua, one of them, is, he's a system quarterback. It's the McDaniel offense, the Shanahan offense, the playmakers, da-da-da-da-da. All of that is so irrelevant because he is in this system. Who cares if you're a system quarterback if you're playing in the system? Like that, we're overthinking it here. For this system, there is no better quarterback to run it. They believe in Tua, and they are ready to go forward in the 2024 season.
Marcel, he's 1,000% a system quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind. Here's my question to you, because you and I have known each other a long time, and you know it's not my style to pocket watch anybody. However, I was shocked to see that the Dolphins paid him, and here's why. With that system, with all those stars you mentioned in that locker room, I thought for sure they could hit the free agent market when the time was necessary and overpay for someone who they thought maybe could get them over the hump. Maybe. Brother, I had Shedeur Sanders in Miami. I thought maybe they could draft a kid, reset, the in terms of contract, paying the quarterback, and get someone in there for that system that could get it done. Let me ask you personally, as someone who covered Josh Allen for as long as you did, that guy, any system, any field, anytime, any place, is a stud. When you watch Tua, were you shocked? Were you personally shocked that he got the bag, Marcel?
Oh, absolutely not. And I'm not just saying this because I don't want Dolphins fans at my doorstep. When you think of the question I keep hearing phrased, right? Like, will the Dolphins regret this? What's the alternative? The alternative is going quarterback hunting again. It's the least admirable, or like the least desirable position in sports is quarterback hunting. You hate doing that. Teams wallow in misery for decades looking for the guy. Look at the Cleveland Browns. Look at where they had to stoop in order to find a guy they think is a franchise quarterback. Like, that's what QB hunting will do to you. So absolutely not. I'm not surprised he got the bag. This was the right move. How bad is Tua going to have to be for them to regret doing this over hitting the reset button? They have spent too much money. They have allocated too many assets, traded too many first-round picks for this team that is built to win right now to start over at the most important position. They know that they've got a guy who is at worst serviceable. He's a starting quarterback, and we could go back and forth all day about that, but at worst, Tua Tagovailoa is a starting quarterback in the NFL. That itself is hard to find. He has flashes where he's a plus starter, an above average, a great starter in the NFL. That's hard to find. Is he going to be a demigod, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, running around Justin Herbert from a physical talent standpoint? No, but that's fine. Like, if the bar was demigod or bust, a lot of quarterbacks would be out of work in the NFL right now. So I'm not shocked that he got the bag. I'm not shocked that they pay him. I'm a little surprised at how long it took. But, I mean, their other options are, assume Dallas doesn't pay Dak and go pay him 60. I'd rather give Tua 53 a year, 53.1 a year, rather than give Dak 60. I don't want to wait around for Kirk Cousins either. And then what? You're getting into Gardner Minshew territory. You gonna ask Case Keenum to come play? Like, there's not a lot of good other options, and they're going to be too good to draft what is a pretty shallow quarterback class next year. And Tua is far better. I don't care about the cost benefit. He's far better than any rookie coming out next year. So no, I think this was the right move. They feel strongly about it. I agree. I know, I don't want to get the homer accusations from the New England crowd, but logically speaking, this was the right move.
You're going to get that no matter what. Exactly. And it was the timing of it, I think, is brilliant, because when Dak gets paid, he will get $60 million a year. It'll be ridiculous, but the cap will go up. When Brock Purdy gets paid, I got my Purdy shirt. I wish I was wearing it, because again, is he a game manager? Yes. But do they execute one of the best systems in the NFL? Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa I'm talking about? Yes. I got to add too, for people to get the bag, if being a hater gets you the bag, Travis would be retiring tomorrow on a beach in the south of Italy. So it doesn't matter to that. Marcel, I do want to ask, now let's talk about Tyreek a little more though. They give him that more money, but don't add years. That's a unique situation. What's the thinking and the thought process there in Miami behind this, with Tua going into his age 30 season, coming off his best career year, one of the best players in the NFL, but to give him more guaranteed money, but not add on any years?
Yeah, this is how you keep your stars happy, right? Like Jerry Jones, take note. Cincy Bengals, take note. This is how you keep your stars happy. They didn't have to do this. They didn't have to pay him. He was under contract for 2 more years. Like, there was no reason to, other than the fact that they said, look, you have outperformed an already sizable contract. We already agreed to a 4-year, $120 million extension with you, and you've outplayed that. And not only have you outplayed that, the wide receiver market has outperformed that contract as well, has surpassed that contract as well. So like it's really just incredible work from both sides. Rarely do you see like a true win-win, right, in the NFL and sports in general, but like a true win-win. The Dolphins keep their guy happy, and they give him the most guaranteed money, fully guaranteed money in NFL history for a wide receiver. So you can wear that crown as, in a sense, the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history in terms of guaranteed money. But they do it without resetting the market. They do it without going past the Justin Jefferson deal or whatever CD and Jamar Chase are going to do. Like they didn't add anything onto the deal from that standpoint. And then from Tyreek's perspective, like now I feel valued by this organization that I have balled out for the past 2 years. Because let me tell you something. As Chris Perkins, he works for the South Florida Sun Sentinel here. It's one of my favorite quotes of his. I say it a lot when I do radio. This offense is about two things: Tyreek Hill and the threat of Tyreek Hill. If he is not on the field, the Miami Dolphins are not the same. And that doesn't matter how good Tua is, how good Waddle is. Like that, it doesn't take anything away from them. Tyreek is just that good that if you take him off the field, the entire offense changes. So good on both sides for getting that thing done. No drama. He insisted, I don't want to be traded. This is about as smooth of a situation, as smooth as a contract demand as you could possibly ask for out of a superstar like that.
Yeah, Marcel, you make a great point about how really good teams and well-run organizations do this ahead of time, and they're sort of proactive with some of these wide receiver contracts. I don't know if you're watching Hard Knocks or not, but the Bears just did this with DJ Moore as well, and he's happy as hell now. So, I agree with you there. Let me stick with Tyreek. He said he could beat Noah Lyles in a race. Now, here's where I'm at with this. If it's a 40-yard dash, I think I'm rolling with the cheetah because Noah Lyles is a slow starter out of the blocks anyway. Cheetah is cheetah. I ask you, who wins? Let's just keep it to a 40-yard dash. Who wins, Cheetah or Noah Lyles?
Oh, man, that is brutal. But, like, you do have a good point in that, like, Noah Lyles is the fastest man in the world in that 100, but he's known as he's a finisher. Right. He's a finisher. He was getting cooked for like 75% of that race in Paris. But I can't help but to think that, okay, if he knows I don't have 100 meters to do this and I only have 40 yards to do this, then obviously he's not going to start slow. Like I think it'll change his perspective a little bit. I'm going to go Noah Lyles. I'm going to go with the guy who does it for a living. Tyreek be lying, bro. He likes to troll. His Twitter bio, I think, is literally. I like to start stuff and leave. Right. I like to start ish and leave. Like this is his MO. So I don't even think he believes he's winning a 100-meter or 200-meter race against Noah Lyles. I think the 40 would be close, but I'm gonna go with the professional sprinter. All respect to Tyreek.
Both world-class runners. So speaking of Tyreek, speaking of Tua, and this is what all the talk is about this offense. Marcel, and Trav's going to roll his eyes when I ask this. To me, the biggest hole on this roster is the offensive line. You mentioned Robert Hunt leaving. I know they brought some guys up. But is that a legit concern for you to have with this team that it has to be at this point, we need to get to the playoffs and win a game, not just get there. And I know all the injuries they had last year, but get to the playoffs and win a game. Will the offensive line potentially hold this team back from achieving that?
That is, I think, the biggest concern. You're right with this Dolphins team. I think the defense, while they did kind of have to part ways from a lot of players, I think this defense is still going to be fine. There's a lot of big names, a lot of good players on there that are essentially the greater than the sum of their parts, as the saying goes. Offensive line is a little tricky. They lost two starters in Robert Hunt and Connor Williams. They brought in Aaron Brewer, who's already kind of nursing an injury here. In training camp, he's been shaky as well to start. A lot of snapping issues, although that was starting to kind of get under control. Isaiah Wynn has not practiced at all. I haven't even seen Isaiah Wynn since he hurt his quad in week 7 of last season. So what was that, like October of last season? He's dealing with apparently a very serious muscle issue there. If he's even going to be ready for the start of the season, it's not looking good in that perspective. They've already lost Keon Smith, who's one of their swing tackles and a guy who can bump inside as well. He's out for the season, torn ACL. So this has been one of the most maligned units in the NFL in terms of just injury luck, and they're already getting hit. They're already getting hurt. Teron Armstead is one of the best tackles in the NFL when he is healthy. You are getting top 5 tackle play when he is healthy, but he is a lock to miss at least 4 games every year, because that is what, again, it's no disrespect, but that's what we've seen for the past few years. Missed 7 games last season. They're a worse team when he's not on the field. They manage his reps well. They trust him. This isn't a sense of him being irresponsible or anything. They manage it about as good as possible, but he's what, 12 years in, give or take, of his career, maybe 13 at this point. Like, he's a vet. Like, this is kind of what happens when you play this long in the NFL. Beyond that, Austin Jackson is reliable, but you're kind of going for unproven after that. Liam Eichenberg, you feel for Liam Eichenberg, because I think if he's stuck at one position, like, he could be a decent, a good starter, maybe slightly above average starter. The issue is, if somebody gets hurt on the line, guess who's going in at that position? Oh, our center's down. Liam, go snap. Oh, right tackle, Austin, you're down. Liam, go play right tackle. Liam, go play left guard, right guard. Like, he's played every position, and he's only been in the league for 3 years.
Wow.
So, like, this is 3 years. My bad. 2021. Got my draft classes mixed up. Like, it's keeping him from excelling at any one position. And then Robert Jones has been good, but he's also played, kind of fill-in duty. He hasn't been that full-time starter in his career, so, like, you haven't seen it yet. He can be good, sure, I'm not saying he's not, but we haven't seen that yet. So there's a lot of unprovenness on that line. They started to address it in the draft, spending the second-round pick on Patrick Paul this year. I will say this, man, when that kid knows what he's doing, he feels confident already, don't get me wrong, but it's one preseason game. When he knows what he is doing without a doubt, and he has his coaching staff's trust, he is going to be a mauler. He's one of those guys, man. You know where Patrick Paul is at all times on the field. We sit, 400 yards away at the very top of the grandstand, 30 rows up. I know exactly where Patrick Paul is. I don't need to see his number. All I can see is that 6'8", whatever helmet poking up above everybody else. He is going to be good eventually, but he is a rookie right now coming out of Houston. I don't know that he's seen this level of competition quite yet. He thinks he's ready. We're going to see. But you're right though, George. Long answer short. The offensive line is an area that, like, if you were going to poke holes in this Dolphins roster, that's probably it. I don't think it's a roster hole per se. When I think of roster hole, I think of, what did New England have at quarterback last year or entering this offseason? That was a hole at quarterback. Right. That was a hole. They have a hole at wide receiver in which, like, you need to add somebody yesterday. This is not up to par. Like, I don't think it's a hole, but I think it is an area that can improve and can potentially sink them if it doesn't go well.
God, you guys in this offensive line talk nonsense. Marcel, listen, this is the last one from me, okay? I made 2 bets on the Dolphins. I just want to run by you and get your thoughts on. First of all, I took them to win the division. Secondly, I took them to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now, the schedule, particularly after they play New England, is a little bit concerning. Thanksgiving night, they go to Green Bay, Jets, then you go to C.J. Stroud, home against the Niners, then you go to the dog pound against Cleveland, and you finish up on the road against the Jets. I mean, just your thoughts on my bets. Division winner, number 1 seed in the AFC. Do you think I'm crazy? Well, I already know you think I'm crazy, but in terms of my bets for the Dolphins, do you think I'm nuts?
Man, look, they were in the hunt for the number 1 overall seed well into last season. So, like, it's not unheard of. It wouldn't be like an astronomical jump into some unforeseen stratosphere. Like, they could do it. They're good enough to do it, yeah. They're good enough, talented enough to win the AFC East. I keep saying, bro, I don't care about the Jets roster talent. Like, they're the Jets at the end of the day. Until they go through a full season without doing something Jetsy, then I am not going to say that they're winning. We're already seeing them Jets. Yep. We're already seeing Jetsing happening with the Hassan Reddick situation. Like, they're the Jets, man. That's a second or third place team until I see otherwise. Bro, man, I know we just heard the Matt Milano news out of Buffalo, which is horrible for them, horrible for the game in general. You hate to see talented players, any players, but talented players go down like that.
Yeah.
Something about the Bills, man. Like, doesn't matter how many people get hurt. They just find a way. Like, 17 just finds a way. So, like, that's what I'm concerned about. We talk about offensive line. The Bills are a greater threat than the Dolphins' offensive line, man. Josh Allen is a greater threat than Miami's offensive line because this is just a team they haven't been able to beat. And I don't care that, like, you recycle players and it's a new look, new roster and all that. Like, it just kind of, like, it seeps into your mind a little bit. And, they're hoping that this is the year. They made some additions. They actually added 2 former Bills in Jordan Poyer and Saran Neal. They're hoping to change that mentality a little bit and get over that hump. But until they do, this is Buffalo's division to lose, man. It's simply Buffalo's division to lose. Miami, what they do have going for them, they have a very easy, I think it's like first 11 games, first 11 weeks of the season. Trav, if you've got that pulled up, then tell me I'm wrong here. But if you are a team that thinks you can contend for a Super Bowl, when you look at those first 11 games, you should win 9 of those.
No doubt.
You should win 9 of those.
Yeah, a lot of these are
so
easy
they have
games.
an easy start to the season.
Yeah.
So they have an easy start to the season if they can close. That's been their problem the past couple of years under McDaniel. They're not good in December. If they can close in December against that meat grinder that you mentioned, then this team's got a shot. I don't think it's a crazy bet, man. I don't think it's a crazy bet. I wouldn't make it because every time I bet, something happens. Those old Buffalo Wild Wing commercials where like they call into the ref, like something happens to ruin my day and take my money. So I wouldn't make that bet, but I don't disagree with it.
Hey, George, if I hit the bet and they are the number 1 seed, you and I will go to Miami. Mojitos are on me. We'll hang out with Marcel. It'll be beautiful, George.
Hey, bro, take me to KOD. I'm in. It's on you, Trav. Marcel, I'm going to end it with this one super quick. I know we got to get you out of here. Tyreek Hill breaks 2,000 receiving yards. Yes or no?
No, I don't think the touches are going to be there this year. I think they want to spread the ball out a little bit more. They went out and invested in the wide receiver position. They added Odell Beckham. Whenever he gets back on the field, he's working hard too. I think he will return. They want to spread the ball out. They added Jalen Wright. I think they're going to, keep reinvesting in the ground game and keep attacking on the ground. I don't think he gets there, but I do think he leads the NFL in receiving yards. It's like that small window of like not 2,000, but still more than everybody else. And that's where Tyreek's going to operate.
He's right in that 1,800-yard neighborhood. I think that's right. And you talked about Jalen Wright. I'm excited to see that rookie. And that's what it's going to be. A lot of guys, a lot of mouths to feed. Hey, the one dude to always follow covering the Dolphins, ESPN's Marcel Louis-Jacques. Hey, man, if you liked what you did, could we bring you back on leading up to the first Patriots-Dolphins game?
Yeah, of course, man. Of course.
I'm inviting you back to the cookout with Trav and I. Marcel Louis-Jacques of ESPN, you're the man. Thanks for taking the time. We'll catch you later this season, brother.
Of course, man. Y'all take it easy, man.
See you, bro.
Good luck watching them Patriots up there.
We need it. Trust me. Hey, it's all about what we opened up. This Matt Judon trade, that's the white flag for the Pats. I like everything he touched on. And Trav, I think the important part that Marcel mentioned too was you would, and I say the same thing of like when Brock Purdy will get paid, although I think accuracy-wise, IQ, execution, I put him higher than Tua.
Sure.
But what Tua with his contract is you'd rather have a guy than not, because he talked about teams shopping for quarterbacks. The Patriots, since Tom Brady left, it's been Cam Newton. It was a Mac Jones failed experiment, and now it's Drake May that we may not see until next season. You'd rather pay a guy can execute and be in your system, and that the head coach and your play caller than not have anyone. That's what stuck out to me with that combo. That and him, man, I know it's like it puts people to sleep, but the offensive line talk. You pay Tua $212.1 million. You need to protect him and keep him healthy and keep this run game moving forward and down the field.
Yeah, no doubt. I understand the Tua signing. I'm still shocked by it, though, George. I really am. I just think with the talent they have, with the system they have, not necessarily what they paid him, just that they decide to pay him, George. I mean, like, with the talent they have, the system they have in place, I think I would have much more of an open mindset at the quarterback position if I were them organizationally, because this guy gets hurt and he is a system guy. I would be looking for a more dynamic playmaker at that position via draft or overpaying in free agency, like Marcel mentioned, Dak Prescott, whatevs. I'm still in shock that they paid him. We'll see how it plays out, though.
The one move I would have liked them to see is draft Spencer Rattler later in the draft. But again, in that 4th, 5th round range, and depending how their board was falling, maybe he was taken before, maybe they took another prospect. I'd have to go back and look at their draft picks.
Right.
And it's the same thing. If you pay Tua now with this weak quarterback draft class coming up, you look another year down the road. And again, they won't be picking too high with the talent they have. And of course, speaking on their ceiling, but not this upcoming draft, maybe the draft after. That's when they take that prospect. And of course, with Tua, we'll have 2 to 3 years left on his deal when they pick one. That's when you develop, and that's when you get a rookie cost-controlled contract under your books. All right, let's get into our latest Mount Rushmore. We've spoken about the offensive side of the ball plenty. Now we're getting to the defensive side. Linebacker Mount Rushmore. We asked NESN.com writers, on-air talent producers to vote on the 4 greatest linebackers of all time. The list that we came up with, I think it's no surprise these 4, honestly. Lawrence Taylor, Ray Lewis, Dick Butkus, and Derek Thomas. 2 great sack artists and 2 great off-ball linebackers. Butkus, I know he played back in the day, but his speed, size, power, his tenacity, his anger. And then Ray Lewis is just one of the greatest football players I've ever seen play. But LT, many will say, outside of Tom Brady, when you talk of GOATs, it's Tom Brady, it's Jerry Rice, and it's Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor is the greatest defensive player of all time.
I really feel privileged this time around. Sometimes we do some of these Mount Rushmores, and I'm just going off of hearsay from what my grandfather, rest his soul, and some of my uncles and my dad and everybody else told me of how great some player was. 3 out of these 4, George, I watched with thine eyes. Lawrence Taylor, I was a young buck, but I at least got to see him. Ray Lewis, I covered, as you know, in Baltimore. It was an amazing opportunity to cover both him and Ed Reed at the same time. It was crazy. Derek Thomas, the late, great Derek Thomas, rest his soul. And then Dick Butkus, I did not see. However, we all know, and you described it there perfectly, how dominant he was and what he means to the game of football. However, for this exercise, I will gladly take Dick Butkus' name off of the list since I didn't see him and just give you some honorable mentions, even though I don't have a problem with him being on here, obviously. Mike Singletary, same damn franchise, same position. I saw him when I was young. He was my favorite player outside of Jerry Rice when I was young, and he was just menacing. Absolutely. There's probably no Ray Lewis. Patrick Willis is another one who comes to mind. Guys who could cover the field with that intensity, sideline to sideline, tackle machines. There's none of them without Mike Singletary. And he had them big old crazy eyes. I used to love that. Patrick Willis, I mentioned, honorable mention. Luke Kuechly, who everyone knows around here locally. Again, Kuechly and Patrick Willis, both you have to kind of discount because they didn't play long enough, but that was a choice that they made, right? Like Andrew Luck, where it's like, look, I've had enough. But, man, I tell you what, even though it was lightning in a bottle and they didn't have the longevity, both of those guys, and Patrick Willis and Luke Kuechly, if they had played longer, George, there's no doubt in my mind one of them, if not both, would have ended up on this Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I think it was Patrick Willis's feet that caused him just a bunch of injuries and just couldn't get healthy with his feet, caused him to finish playing early. Luke Kuechly was concussions. I'd put if Luke Kuechly played a full long career at the level he was, I think he would have went down as the best middle linebacker in NFL history. I put Junior Seau and Brian Urlacher on my honorable mention list as well. But I like that Singletary stick out because he's on mine. Defensive Player of the Year in 1985. Okay, so you were the best player on the best defense ever, and he was also 7-time first-team All-Pro. The only defensive player with more All-Pro nods was Lawrence Taylor. So I think that speaks for all you need to know about Mike Singletary. But also to Derek Thomas, I think over 125 career sacks, and he's playing in the 90s for the Chiefs. If you put together a Kansas City or if you put together a Chiefs Mount Rushmore, it's Mahomes, it's Kelsey now. It would maybe be Tony Gonzalez if I say leave him off because he disrespected the city. But after Mahomes and Kelsey, it's Derek Thomas. Or you could say 1 is Mahomes, 2 is Derek Thomas. That's how good of a linebacker he was. Now, I'm not going to say because you're the franchise's best, you'd be one of the best of all time. But he was that good that if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes, he'd be the best in KC Chiefs history. But what he did at the position, again, as a sack artist and an overall linebacker, he was so good. To check out all our NESN Mount Rushmores throughout the NFL, go to wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. Like, subscribe, rate, review. Go to NESN on YouTube or Nesson on Twitch. Our channel's there, and hit the subscribe button as well. He's Travis Thomas. I'm George Balekji. This was the latest episode of Foxboro Rush. Thanks again to Marcel Louis-Jacques for joining us to talk Dolphins. We'll have him back on the program. For now, we'll see you guys when the next episode drops Monday morning.